side. Is it loose or up?
Okay. Yeah, I'm not really going to use it. Once the presentation's over, I'll just have to click. All right.
Okay. You plugged it in on which one?
Oh, all right.
There you go.
Okay. Ah, there we go.
You've got it.
Yes.
So then you can use, which one you want me to put
The
first?
bottom one, the March 27th, please. You have to just click, yeah, enable content and slideshow from
Well, actually, I can just go here.
Right.
And then there's your clicker.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Okay, we'll wait for the others.
Great.
There's 7, but
Okay. Well.
yeah. We'll wait maybe 5 more minutes, and then you know what? Even in fairness to who's watching us, right?
Right. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, of course. So apparently we are being zoomed out to several different offices. So I'm not sure if we're live. If we are, welcome. If not, I'll welcome them a little bit later. So again, we'll start formally in a couple of minutes. But just curious, are you using email marketing at all right now? Okay. And are you? No? Okay. And can I ask how long have you been in real estate?
A couple of years.
A couple of years. And for you? Less than 1 year. Okay, great. Yeah, so you're still sort of building up your client list. But I said that you had a different career before real estate. May I ask what you were doing?
Accounting.
Accounting. Oh, okay. I think that would be really helpful. Yeah.
I still am practicing as a registered dental hygienist.
Oh, okay. All right, very good. Yeah, it's I think real estate's a good career because you can sort of transition into it. You don't have to completely stop what you're doing. Yeah. Okay. Excellent. Great. Yeah, I guess we'll give it a couple of minutes, but I mean, you guys managed to be here on time, so all right. We won't give them the dirty look when they get here.
At 11 anyways, right?
10:30.
Oh, 10:30?
Yeah, scheduled 10:30 to
What?
to 12. Yeah, otherwise you were super early.
I misread the email.
Oh yeah, maybe you could double check. I thought it was 10:30 to 12.
It's 10:30, yes.
Okay, good. All right. Otherwise we have like an influx of people at 11. All right.
And the first email confirmation says 11 to 12.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not on Eventbrite. Eventbrite said 10:30.
Today
Okay.
The new one says 10:30, but the old one
Okay.
says 11.
All right.
So maybe.
Okay.
So they are
They're coming. Well, I'm going to start in a minute, and if need be, I will do a quick recap for them when they get here very quickly. All right. Oh, yeah, no, not a problem. I just want to let you know we're starting. So go about your business. Thanks. All right. You know what? It is 10:40. I'm going to get started for you, and I assume that there are people watching, so welcome. Today we're talking about the power of the inbox and email marketing. I'm happy to have been asked by Celeste to come back here to speak, but I know we have one familiar face, but for people that are new, my name is Mark Brodsky. My company is called MB Digital Communications. It's actually been running for just over 11 years, working with real estate agents and some other small businesses to help them build a business using email marketing and social media. You may have, if you read Real Estate Magazine, I also do a regular column there with a monthly tip on email and social. I think this month there's actually a video on their website. So again, if you read that magazine, you might see me there. I guess a couple pieces of housekeeping. I'm happy to send out a copy of the slides afterwards, and feel free to ask questions. Great. And so before I begin, just to ask Celeste quickly. So apparently there was one confirmation that went out that said it was starting at 11.
Well, that's what VAFA told me, but there's no confirmation.
Okay.
It says, just check. It's always been 10:30
Okay.
to 12,
That's
but I
all
had VAFA now
Right.
email me saying that she'll be here by 11,
Okay.
right? So I
All
guess
right.
the others are under that impression
Right.
as well.
On Eventbrite, it said 10:30.
It
So
said
yeah.
10:30,
Okay. All right.
Maybe like if you can just warm up and then they're all coming and I'm thinking, where did this 11 come from? It showed no,
It's on Eventbrite.
it says 11?
Yeah.
I'm checked now, it says 10:30.
I know, it's weird, but it said 11.
It came up as 11?
Yes.
Yeah, I just checked now because VAFA had texted me.
Right.
I thought, but it says 10:30 to 12.
I'm not in the list.
There you go. Add your name, don't worry.
Okay.
Now, I think he's not on the list. He's not welcome. Get out.
Terry registered for me. I don't
Right,
know.
so this is probably a glitch in, can you find it?
Yeah, I don't know.
I got
Okay,
the
let me know
email.
if you find it, because,
Sure.
yeah, you got the email, right?
Yeah.
It said 10:30?
Then there is the email.
I don't know, I'm confused. Let's give it a bit, we'll warm up, but,
Okay. Well,
Yeah. see, it comes up as 11 here, but
okay. It
a
was
lot of people
10:30
got
originally.
10:30,
Yeah,
a lot of
okay.
people got 11, and I have the live broadcasters on, 10:30.
Okay.
Right, so, okay, let's warm it up, but
Okay.
I don't know if it was a glitch or he registered, he's not even on there.
Right.
There
Right.
is the
Okay.
ticket number.
Yeah, no, that's fine, it's okay, thank you.
All right.
We can get going and then as they come, I'll let them know, I told Beth, come right now because it's starting. like,
Right. Right. Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
all right?
Yeah.
Okay,
I'll
thank
just,
you.
I'll just do a quick
Yes,
recap.
little
All right.
recap, okay?
Okay, excellent. Great. I'm going to talk about really three things. I want to talk to you a little bit about why email marketing is a really effective tool. I'm going to talk about 5 things you can do to actually make email marketing work for you. And then finally, I'm going to talk to you about putting it all together. And again, if you got a question, please don't hesitate to ask. So in terms of what email marketing is, just so that we're on the same page, when I refer to email marketing, it's a branded piece of communication that's visual. It's going out to people that are expecting to get email from you, and it contains information that they're interested in. And number 5, it has to look good in any inbox. And the reason being is that about 50% of emails right now are open for the first time on a mobile device. So people that open your email on a phone, they need to be able to read it. So the reason that I'm a big fan of email marketing is that people still open their email. If I can just ask, did any of you check your email today? Okay, and have you checked your email since you've been in the room?
Yes.
Okay, and is anybody checking email right now? Okay, all right, okay. But again, we check our email. I think certainly for the people that we're aiming to do business with, it's going to be higher than 91%. But certainly we're checking our email all day, every day, whether we're in bed, whether in a place of worship, sometimes in the bathroom, we're checking our email. And again, when it comes to reliability, especially if you're using a professional email program like an iExact, somebody from Agent Locator, a MailChimp, or a Constant Contact, it's going to reach somebody's inbox 95 to 97% of the time. So even if they don't open it, they're at least going to see your name in the subject line, and it's just a reminder. And to me, email is really the last channel we have to reach out to everybody we know in a proactive way. I am a big fan of social media, but it takes a little while to get going. And the average post on social media, especially Facebook, reaches 1 to 2% of the people that like your page. So without any advertising, Facebook has a really low reach per post because, of course, Facebook wants to make money. They're in business, so they want you to advertise. So, if there are any questions about that statistic? Now, we all know that first impressions matter, right? Let's say you were going to show up for a date or an anniversary with some flowers. I suspect if you showed up with the flower that's on the left, you'll probably get a door slammed in your face. So we want to show up with the one on the right. And that would apply to email as well. So it's a big difference for a client between getting the email that's on the left, which is like all text, or the one on the right, which is graphic and branded and has a clear call to action, right? You see the shop now button at the bottom. So people know who it's from, they know it's being asked. And you see the one on the left, you also run the risk of everybody that has received that email has contact information for everybody else on the list. And that is really, to me, one of the main reasons that regular email isn't a great idea for marketing. So I'm talking about like a Yahoo, a Rogers, a Google. First of all, yeah, you run the risk of violating people's privacy because now everybody sees everybody else on the list. The second reason is they only allow you to send a certain number of emails to an email address. So if you had, let's say, 25 people on your list, that might work. But if you had 50, 100, 200, all of a sudden you're now creating different lists and spending half a day sending them out. Whereas one of these companies, like again, MailChimp, Constant Contact, they're really designed for bulk email marketing. Oh, welcome. Hi. So, and the other thing that that these systems will do that regular email doesn't is it gives you information. So these systems will actually tell you how many people opened your email and what links they clicked on, which is really, really great information. So, questions about that? All right. So just to summarize what I've already spoken about, I'm here to talk about email marketing.
Yes.
And to condense it, I think email marketing works because people are checking their email all day, every day. And it's the last channel I think people have to actually reach everybody in their contact list. All right, that's the summary. Excellent. So now let's say a really great marketing campaign starts with a good list. So the challenge, of course, with email is that we all receive so many emails. Very few people are going to volunteer to be added to a mailing list. So you have to get into the habit of asking. I'm going to tell you how and where. I think the only exception would be somebody like me. If somebody asks, I will volunteer. I will ask people if they have a mailing list because I'm happy to be added. I'm really curious about what people are sending out. But again, sort of a unicorn that way, nobody's really going to volunteer and ask. So you have to be proactive and get people to sign up. So you may be familiar with the Canadian anti-spam legislation. So that came into effect July 2014. The two main ways that it affects real estate agents. One is permission. So there are two kinds of permission. So there's one that's called implied consent. And that's a good one to start with because it applies to anybody you might be emailing already on a regular basis. So friends, family, and colleagues can be added to a list. The second one you see is called express consent. And that is where somebody's either signed up online because they say sign up for my newsletter, or you ask them directly, may I add you to my newsletter, and they say yes. That's considered express consent. The difference is that with express consent, you have their permission to keep emailing them forever until they unsubscribe. With implied consent, it expires after 2 years. So, and that also applies to people you might have done business with. So that permission expires after 2 years unless you've actually asked them directly, can I add you to my mailing list? So just at one point in 2014, I did about 45 minutes on the anti-spam legislation. So I know it's very summarized, but that's really that's really where you should focus in terms of being compliant, is that getting that permission. The other thing legally is you have to offer people a way to unsubscribe. So if you're sending something through Gmail or through a personal email address, you can have a little disclaimer that says, please reply to this email with the word unsubscribe in the subject line. And if they do that, you have to honor it within 10 business days. But again, if you're using one of these systems, there's a link built into every email. You've probably seen it. And it just says unsubscribe, one click, and they're gone forever. The nice thing about that is there's no way you can add them again to the list, so you don't risk violating the law. And I have been told by other realtors that the people most likely to report real estate agents are other real estate agents. So you just want to be careful. Of course, you want to be clear about what you're sending out and how often. It helps if you have a little bit of a privacy agreement, whether it's on your website that you can link to, or just a comment that says, your email address will not be rented out, sold, shared, or used for anything other than my emails. Because it gives people confidence that you're not going to actually be using their information for anything else. I mean, realistically, if it's your client, if it's someone you know, there's no benefit to you to do that, but it just helps give people a little bit of confidence. So do you have any questions about permission? Yes?
Sometimes when you try to unsubscribe from a list, it gives you all these questions as to why you are unsubscribing from that list.
Yes.
I personally find that very annoying. It should
Okay.
be quick, it should be right away.
It should
I
be.
shouldn't have to explain myself why I'm unsubscribing.
Yes, no, you are completely right. And I believe none of us want to actually read the copy that's on the screen, but I think if you look, certainly I know with MailChimp, it'll say you've been unsubscribed. If you have a moment, please tell us why. So it should have unsubscribed you with that one click. It's just giving you
Because they
an
want
opportunity.
feedback or something.
Yeah, and so that's actually a benefit for you, because if somebody unsubscribes from your list, they may actually tell you why. Maybe it's coming too frequently. Maybe they've moved out of the city. Any number of reasons. Yeah, but no, I agree. It should be one click. Yeah, thank you. So in terms of where to get people to sign up, I would say everywhere you're online. So your LinkedIn profile allows you to have a spot where you can put a sign up link. Your email signature and your website. The benefit of getting people to sign up online is that it falls under that express consent header. So if you say sign up for my monthly newsletter, people know what they're doing. They're clicking that link, they're giving you the email address, they know what to expect, and that is express consent, which is why it's great. You set this up once, and it continues to work for you in the background. And of course, this would only work with, again, with like a MailChimp or an Exact, Agent Locator, Constant Contact. There are a number of different programs. But the thing is, they give you that link. And when people click that link, they add themselves to your list, and you're completely hands-off. The system has done all the work for you. You might get an email every week telling you who signed up. But you don't need to worry about adding people to your database. The system's doing it for you. And again, everywhere else, in real life, when you're handing out business cards, you're talking to people, you're meeting new people, if you've established a connection, if you get into the habit of saying, you know what, I send out a really great newsletter every month, can I add you to my list? About 2/3 of people will say yes. And I would hope that people that say no will be polite about it. Often people, we just get so many emails, sometimes you just can't say yes to everything. If you're at a trade show, if you're doing a giveaway, rather than say drop your business card in for a chance to win, if the sign says sign up for my mailing list for a chance to win, all of a sudden people are dropping business cards, and now you've just got permission to add them to your mailing list. So again, you got to be careful about the language, because they need to know that they're signing up for the mailing list. But again, people will do that. It's really easy to drop in a business card for to win a prize. And I've got a client out in Oakville who does events. So one of the things she does is in October, she does a pumpkin giveaway. So she sends out, the email goes out to all her clients, it gets posted on social media. And the only price for the pumpkin is a sign up for her mailing list and a food donation for a food bank. So again, it's really not costing them anything. And really every year she ends up with 100 to 150 new email addresses. And didn't cost her much. And it's it's a really great community event. Plus, it provides content for her own channels. So I know it can be a little bit challenging to actually get into the habit of asking people sign up for your mailing list. I actually had to do my own monthly tip. I'm still a little bit shy about asking people, but in the follow-up email, you'll have a link. Now, it may not be enough just to ask somebody. Sometimes you actually have to offer something. So this would be especially, I would say, let's say at an open house, because I've been told that people don't always give a real email address at an open house. But if you can promise them something like a link to information about what the spring market's going to bring in the GTA, a link to 10 things that buyers need to know, even if it's an article about the recent mortgage changes for first-time buyers. Just if you can save somebody a couple of steps, the chances are a lot higher they're going to give you an email address. And certainly the information is either on the Royal LePage website, it's in your head, it could be a link to like an article from the CBC, but just you're offering something in exchange for that email address. Now, once you've actually done the work of asking people and getting people into your mailing list, the last thing you want them to do is unsubscribe. So that's when content comes into play, because the number one reason people will unsubscribe is if the content is not relevant. So we talk about content. We can talk about two things. One is a little bit about creating your own content. The challenge with that, of course, is that it is time consuming and not everybody wants to do it. So the other option that you have, in addition, is using other people's, other content creators' content in your email and social media. And I'm going to talk about how to do it legally. So again, the main thing is you want to focus on being relevant and sending out information that is going to be of interest to the people you're working with. I think real estate agents it's easier for you to be relevant because you know who you work with, you know where they live, you know who they are, you know what they're interested in. So it shouldn't be that much of a challenge to find content that is going to be of interest. Again, you want to figure out how much is enough. You don't want to give too little, you don't want to give too much. Over time, you'll figure it out. To generate some of your own content, people are going to like frequently asked questions. If you address one of those in each email, it's really good because it establishes your expertise and it's a piece of original content. Even if it's just your own take on what happened in the market the previous month. It can just be a few words, but it's something that you've created. And you don't want to forget about images. So again, the main thing to remember is it's less about what you think people should know and more about what they want to hear about. And I'll talk about the kinds of content, but really it's not meant to be salesy. Like an email, like a monthly email, it's just that monthly touch, right? It's coming to their inbox, they're seeing your name and your face. And I would say the top three kinds of content that people click on are food, first of all, home decor, and then gardening and events. So certainly that's usually what I like to open with. And then you might have something about the market and then new listings as well. But the goal is, again, is just to stay remembered. And again, if it's not of interest to them, you're going to find people are unsubscribing or will send it to spam. So again, but I mean, you know your audience. So to give you an example, a few months ago, I went to Winners to buy a jacket. And when I got to the cash register, they asked if I wanted to sign up for their mailing list. And of course I said yes, because I always say yes when they ask me. And within a couple of days, I started getting emails. One was for women's wear. Next one was for children's wear, and I got something for housewares. I stayed on their list for about 6 weeks. And in 6 weeks, I did not get one email about menswear. And again, all they had to do was ask out of the 4 categories, what are you interested in? And so I unsubscribed because, personally, I get too many emails, and if it's something I'm not interested in, I will unsubscribe. So it can't be, I would say it can't be too salesy. So, and again, I like the 80-20 rule. If 80% of what you're putting in your newsletter is informative, entertaining, then 20% can be promotional. So I always like to include, let's say, a call to action in the introduction. Again, even if it's just something like, a referral is the best compliment you can pay. Please forward this email to anybody who may be interested. Are you thinking of making a move this year? Do you have questions about the real estate market? Please get in touch. So again, just sort of a call to action, just to prompt people to maybe to push it to a friend or a colleague that they know is in the market. Because again, part of the goal is that the people on your list, your current happy clients, are going to be providing referrals, and this just gives them an easy tool to do it. So to talk about images, because again, 90% of the content our brains process is visual. So if you get into the habit of taking your own photos, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. I'm going to give you a couple of examples of how people have done it. So this is a client out in Oakville. For 2 years in a row, her daughter has participated in a fundraiser called Rock Your Locks, where people grow their hair out. And once a year, they get about, I think, a foot cut off, and it's donated to a wig maker who makes it for cancer patients. So really good cause. They support it. So she was there, she took photos, we featured it in her newsletter, and then we featured it on her social media as well. So again, it might not occur to you that that's going to be something of interest to your client base, but again, we do business with people that we like, and to establish yourself as part of the community, you know, giving back as well, that can go a really long way, just towards building a feeling of goodwill. Other example is I had a client who she gutted her home. She was living in a 60s bungalow, and they gutted it to the studs. And she was documenting it on her own personal Facebook. And when I saw the results she was getting, I said, you know, why don't we share this in the newsletter? Because people love it. So every month she would take a few photos, a couple of short videos, and it would be featured in her email. And then finally, at the end, she actually hired a virtual tour company that she used for her own listings to come in and film her house, just the renovations. So a little bit of the narrative was, it really gave her some compassion for her own clients who were undergoing renovations. Because when you're living outside your house for 9 months, and the renovation just seems to be endless, again, it gave her compassion and a really great video that she was able to include in her email. So do you have questions about anything so far? Now again, when you are working with photos, depending on whether you're taking it yourself or if you're looking for something online, the challenge is that if you do a Google image search, for instance, you're going to come up with thousands of pictures that are exactly what you're looking for. The problem is that they are all copyrighted. So I should point out, I'm happy to send it a copy of the slides after, but feel free to take notes or photos. So you actually have two options if you're not using your own photos. One is a stock photography site. The one that I like is called 123rf.com. It's a paid site, but I think each photo works out to about $1.50 each. And this would be, for instance, if you were going to feature the market news in your newsletter, and the article from the Star, the picture was of a RE/MAX sign. Right, you don't want to use a RE/MAX sign. If you don't have one of your own, you could just go to a generic photo of Richmond Hill or whatever neighborhood you're in, because again, you don't want to promote competition. And the other one that I came across a few days ago, someone told me about it, is called unsplash.com. It is actually completely free, and you don't even have to credit the people that actually put the photo up. They have a lot of photos. I found their search mechanism isn't 100%, but again, unsplash.com, completely free. And again, when it comes to creating your own content, I would say if you can get comfortable with anything in 2019, it should be video. So this will be in the slides, and you can actually play it. It's a client of mine in Toronto. He did in November, in the fall, he did a video on Airbnb. A little bit of tips on people that wanted to do it, the legalities, the buildings in the city that actually allowed it. And again, it was something that he filmed in his office. I think he edited it a little bit on his phone. And again, it was fantastic because we put it on his blog, we put it in his newsletter, we put it on social, and it didn't cost him anything but time. And video really is something I would suggest you try and get used to for 2019. I know it's a big learning curve to get, and a challenge to be comfortable with the way you appear on camera. I know that personally because I've done a couple different series, and the first time you see yourself on camera, it's a little bit frightening because you have an idea of how you look and how you sound, and the first time you see it, it takes a little bit of getting used to. The nice thing is if you're going to do it on your phone, it doesn't have to be shown to anybody but you, and you can look at it, you can do it a couple of times. I will say one thing to keep in mind when you are doing video, you don't have to be perfect. I actually spoke earlier this week at Sandra Renamato's office, who was on Property Virgins. Her advice to her agents was, if you are 70% there, that's good enough. That is what she aimed for, was never perfection. And certainly a couple of stumbles, a couple of filler words, it just helps establish that you're human. So you're not a professional news anchor. You're just who you are. So I know that can prevent a lot of people from actually going on camera. Morning. So we are just talking about content right now, and I think for anybody who arrives late, I'll go into it after. So that's really the tips I have in terms of creating your own content. So the next place I want to go is some legal places and legal ways to use other people's content. Because again, anybody who was in business, let's say 20, 25 years ago, if you shared something from a paper like the Star or the Globe and Mail, there was actually a disclaimer that said reproduction in whole or in part must be accompanied by permission in writing. And now anybody creating content and publishing it online, they want you to share it. They've done a complete 180. So some great sites with content, hgtv.ca. Again, they're updating it daily. They have really great photo albums. The last one I saw that was hugely popular was the 10 worst things that Scott McGilvory has seen in homes, right? Because he's seen some horrors. That was hugely popular. They do all sorts of lists and decor. So again, hgtv.ca is great. Oh, and I'm also happy to send the slides out after, but feel free to take photos anything you like. Yeah. And I should say, we're being zoomed apparently to several different offices. So house.com is a site I like. The articles are written by actual interior designers. So again, it's not, to me, they're not really trying to sell anything. They're just trying to build their reputation. It is a US-based site, so you do want to just make sure that the article is applicable to Southern Ontario. I remember seeing one in the fall about plants and flowers that bloom all year round. It was aimed towards people in like California and Arizona. Certainly not. You wouldn't find that here. Livable.com. So this was part of BuzzBuzz Home actually split. So BuzzBuzz Home is now the industry site. Livable is the consumer site. They've got humor. They've got market news, interior design. They often have a lot of great information, and they're updating their content usually a couple of times a day. Anybody familiar with apartmenttherapy.com? So that's a website. It tends to skew a little bit younger. So anybody who's and for smaller spaces. So anybody that specializes in condos, this is a really great site because they have good advice for smaller spaces. Blogto, right? I mean, we're just north of the city. This is one of the sites that they have like the top 10 for the food items. So again, the content people love: food, home decor, gardening, and events. So again, this one has like the best churros. They have everything from the best vegetarian burgers, best veggie burgers, to the city's best splurge brunches. And again, they're updating it on a regular basis. The reason that they publish so many of those lists is that people love them. So again, it can be a really great thing to share in a newsletter. I often like to open with that in the subject line, because if you can put the 10 best something that your clients are going to be interested in, it's a great way to get people to open email. Again, events, experienceyourcreation.com. I mean, I'm going to suspect that very few people actually visit this site. But if you can act as a filter and pick out an event that's happening that you know that people will be interested in, again, it just gives people another reason to open your email. And then there's also, there should be a Snapped, S-N-A-P-D. There should be a Richmond Hill edition as well. So, Ashat, does everybody you work out of this office? Or
Yes.
okay, so okay, all right. So I'm correct when I say Richmond Hill. Okay.
Do you send this information for us?
Yes, yeah, I'll right at the end. Yeah. Yeah, I actually grew up not far from here. My parents are still at Don Mills and John. So yeah. Great. So again, typical sources like Better Homes and Gardens, Better Dwelling, CTV, CBC, they're all going to have articles. Some of them actually have paywalls now, so I know the Globe and Mail will have some articles that are for subscribers only. So you just want to look for that little gray banner underneath the reporter's name. But again, there are really dozens of places you can go for content. And they're probably thinking, okay, well, thank you for these ideas, but where do I find the time to actually collect all this information? So I'm going to give you some shortcuts. Is anybody familiar with Google News Alerts? Okay, so good. So we've all done a Google search for websites. One of the options is news. So when you type in keywords and you click news, Google will send you the headlines happening with those keywords. So for instance, you might do real estate GTA. You might do mortgage rates Canada, Bank of Canada. There's specific neighborhoods, let's say like Thornhill Woods. Whenever these words come up in a headline or a story, Google will email you a link. And again, you push them to a folder, and whenever you need content, it's actually going to be there. So whether it's, you can set it up for daily or weekly as it happens. And again, they're really, really great. I also suggest setting up a Google News Alert for your own name. Because again, I find it personally interesting to know who shares my name. As well, once in a while there's a website set up like Rate Your Realtor, and they don't need your permission to add you to the site. So it's just nice to know if somebody, what is happening with your name online. And I guess there's two ways to set up a Google News Alert. One is by going to google.com/alerts, and you can just plug in the keywords there. Or again, if you do a search, at the bottom of the first page, it'll say create a news alert for these keywords. And you can do as many Google News Alerts as you like. Did you have questions about that? Number two, of course, email newsletters. Any of these websites and companies that are publishing content online, they're going to be sending it out by email. So again, you sign up for these email newsletters, put them in a folder, and whenever you're ready to put together a monthly email, that content is there for you. I guess last but not least, if you prefer to get fewer emails, just follow them on social media. Again, all of these content creators are going to be all over. They're going to be on Twitter, they're going to be on Facebook, some of them may be on LinkedIn, they're going to be on Instagram. So wherever you are, if you prefer to get your information there, follow them on social media. And again, the benefit here is that if everything goes into one folder, when you're looking for content, you don't have to go to multiple websites. You go to this folder and you pick and choose, and it should save time. And then here's what it looks like. So here's how you're using it legally. So this might be from HGTV, which we took one of the photos, the headline. You can customize the paragraph if you want. But all we're doing is we're using the opening paragraph and linking back to the site. So again, we're not taking the article as a whole, but we're driving people to their website, which is what they want us to do. So another example, 12 kids bathroom design ideas. People really like lists like this because when you see the number 12, you know that it's not going to go on forever. If you're in a hurry and you want to go to the photo album, you're going to be clicking through 12 photos and you're done. And of course, a little bit more newsworthy, like 3 best mortgage bets. So I'm going to talk about the data you get at the end, but you're going to find over time, you'll figure out what kind of content your clients are interested in, and then it may make sense to go a little bit more business-wise, or a little bit softer. But you'll see as time goes on. Great. So before I go on to brand, do I have any questions about using other people's content, legalities around it? And I will say I'm happy to stick around for questions afterwards. So I'm going to touch briefly on designing a mobile-friendly template. So I would say at this point, if you were starting an account, and I mentioned companies like Agent Locator, Exact, MailChimp, Constant Contact, any of these providers, if you're starting a template now, it should be mobile-friendly, or they may use the phrase mobile responsive. And again, this is really important because, again, 50% of emails are being opened on a mobile device now, and you have to make sure that it looks good. So again, if you're sending out emails already using a system, the easiest way to find out if it's mobile friendly is look at your last newsletter. If you can read the text, if the pictures go stretched from side to side and they're easy to see, chances are it's mobile friendly. If it is not, all you need to do is start a new template, because I don't think anybody at this point offers templates that are not mobile friendly. And of course, you want your branding to be consistent. So again, it's super important when you're designing your template or anything online. Again, you want the headshot to be consistent. You want the language you're using. You want the colors, and of course any sort of logos you're using to be consistent. And I will say one of the best things you can do is make sure that you have a headshot that is up to date. So I'm not pointing any fingers because I haven't seen the business cards. Because the goal of anything you're doing online is to move it into real life. And so you want people to recognize you if you're out and about. And I'm sure we've all seen business cards with headshots that are 10 or 15 years old. And if people don't recognize you, they're not going to see it. So it's important. So I think it's important to be recognized. And of course, you might be sending out different kinds of emails. I'd say the most common one would be a monthly newsletter, because again, it's just something that goes out, let's say, middle of the month, every month to reach out. But you may have an announcement to make. Maybe you've got a new listing, or you want to promote an open house, or maybe you've got an event that you're hosting. I have a client that does a movie night every 6 months. So it's a much shorter email. I get sent out to sort of his A clients, so they have first dibs. And of course, you also might want to send something out for holidays. They're the traditional big holidays, but again, depending on your client base, you may want to recognize something like a holiday that they celebrate. And of course, so you can actually use the same template. And what the nice thing about these systems is you just copy it, and then you just replace the information. So the basic branding is there and it stays consistent. Questions about the templates? It should be pretty basic, and some of these companies, I think, for a small fee, will actually create one for you with your brand. So now I want to talk about getting your email opened, because we did speak about we spoke about building a list. We spoke about generating the content, designing the template. So now that we've done the hard work, we actually want people to pay attention. So I'm going to give you a couple, 4 ways plus a bonus to get more people to open your emails. And I'll go into all of these, but of course, you want people to recognize who the email is coming from. You've got to have a really great subject line. Timing is something to take into consideration. And you also want to give people an opportunity to share it on their social channels. So number one, and I know this often seems like common sense, but you have to think about how do people know you best. Maybe if you're part of a team, maybe you have the team name as well as your name in it. And the email address you're using also can have an impact. So for instance, some email programs will show your first and last name. Some will show just your email address. Some will show both. So I strongly suggest using an email address that either has your name in it, like your full name, or the Royal LePage, or just something that easily identifies you as a real estate agent. Because I know a lot of people may be using like an old Yahoo or Gmail address, and they don't have their full name. So I would suggest using something that is immediately recognizable. So, because again, the easiest way to get somebody to delete an email is by it appearing to come from a stranger. And of course, you want to use that name across all your channels. So no matter where anybody's getting a message from you, whether it's on Facebook or LinkedIn or email, that they know exactly who it's coming from. Now, surveys found that up to a third of people will actually open an email based on the subject line alone, which is why it's really worth putting some thought into. Again, you got to figure out your purpose. For instance, so when I'm putting together an email for a client, I generally wait until the email is finished before figuring out the subject line. Because I want to think about what is the first piece of content that I think people are going to be most interested in. And that is what I start with. So again, when it comes to subject lines, unfortunately, size does matter. You want to keep it as short as possible. Because most email programs are only going to show about 30 to 40 characters. So, yeah, I mean, it can be as long as you like, but after about 30 or 40 characters, it's going to go off the page and people won't see it. If you can keep it to 6 to 10 words maximum, that's what I would recommend. And is anybody familiar with the term pre-header text? Okay. So the nice thing about pre-header text is it actually gives you a second chance to capture somebody's attention. So I know certainly on Outlook, on the iPhone emails, when you pull in an email, you see the sender, the subject line, and then a couple of lines of text, which is called the pre-header. So for instance, here, the sender is Half Moon Yoga. The subject line is Acro Yoga at 10,000 feet. The pre-header text is Aspire to Higher Ground. Now, the reason that you want to think about this text is if you don't put anything in that field, it's going to pull in the first line of text in the email. And more often than not, it's just, are you having problems reading this email? Click here to view it on the web. So it's really not doing you any favors. And where you're finding this is when you're editing the subject line, every email program I've seen will say you edit your subject line, and right below it, it's a field for the pre-header. And then when I send the email out with the slides, I'll come to that. In terms of trying to not to be caught by a spam filter, you don't want to use a lot of punctuation. You don't want to use, again, words like free or urgent. If you're curious about what words will trigger a spam filter, easiest way is to go into your spam box and see what is actually caught. Because it's usually a lot of exclamation points, something like that, or like a lot of dollar signs. It's tempting to try and do this to get people's attention, but I think if you're using the right words at the very beginning of the subject line, that'll be good enough. So here's where I'm going to name some names. Not for everybody. Here's some bad subject lines. I'm not going to name names for this one. This is a real estate team in Toronto. They send out a monthly newsletter, which is actually fantastic. The content is almost all created by them or for them. The information is interesting. The subject line is terrible. Toronto, March 2019 real estate update, because that was last month. It was Toronto, February 2019. It tells you nothing about what's in the email. And it's really, especially if it's one of a dozen emails that came in at once, it's the easiest one to delete because it gives you, there's no sense of urgency. There's nothing interesting about that headline to actually get you to open the email. Again, I think is almost worse than the one up top. That one I picked from Roy Thompson Hall. They send out a monthly newsletter. And anybody who's ever been on their website or gone to Roy Thompson Hall, like they've got a wide range of artists. They appeal. There's something there that appeals to almost everybody every month. If they open with something other than March newsletter, I think they could double the number of people that open the email, because if they named the kind of music that they're playing or a couple of artists, that I think would go so far. Because again, March newsletter, it's just so easy to delete. And then the last one. Are anybody familiar with the Dufflet Bakery?
Yes.
Okay, so they're well known. Yeah, I've got a real sweet tooth, so I love Dufflet. And there's unfortunately, there's one right around the corner from where I live, so they know me. They asked me if I'd sign up for their email list, and of course I said yes. And I start getting this. It comes with an attachment. It comes from the name of the person who does their communications. And I almost deleted it because the first one I got didn't even have the word Dufflet in the subject line. So I think for companies that are doing such a great job in real life, they're doing themselves a disservice by not giving a couple of minutes thought to the subject line to get people to open it. So here are a couple of examples of what I think are better subject lines. Again, TO's Best Diners. You got 7 words. If you know people on your list are interested in film, you got iconic films at Cinesphere. And again, we've opened with something food related. Magazine-worthy new listing, 3 best mortgage bets. This one was for a client out in Hamilton. She has like a $2 million listing on the hill. And normally I wouldn't open with a listing, but thousands had been spent on the stage and she got a professional photographer in. Like it looks spectacular. And we knew that people would be interested in it just because the shots were amazing. So again, we got 8 words. And I think, again, magazine-worthy new listing. For people that are curious about what's for sale, that's definitely going to get them to open the email. And last, 5 most expensive condos. That really is something that almost everybody's curious about. They want to know, like, what does a $15 million condo look like? What are the finishings? I will say most of the time, the most expensive condo, the finishings are so specific to the person that owns it that nobody likes the decor. Like anybody who's going to buy it is going to renovate it. But again, it's something that people love. Either that or something like what $300,000 buys you across Canada. Because again, I know living here, $300,000 doesn't buy much in anything. But across the country, people are curious. So we've got 12 great new patios. It's 8 words. Again, concise, and it tells people what they're going to get. Do you have any questions about this? Let's talk about timing. So really, I think when people sign up for a mailing list, they're expecting something once a month. I know certainly there are companies out there that kind of violate that rule. If anybody's ever signed up for emails from like Kitchen Stuff Plus or The Bay or even Kane's Warehouse, it's a bit of a surprise, but you start getting emails every single day, and I think that is way too frequent. So certainly for real estate, monthly is about right. If you wanted to send something out more frequently than that, I think you need to let people know up front. I'm going to send something every 2 weeks, or it's going to be a monthly newsletter plus my new listings. And that way people have an expectation, and so when they say yes, it's not a surprise that all of a sudden they're getting 2 or 3 emails a month. The other thing you can do is actually set up 2 lists. You can set up a newsletter list and a new listings list, and let people opt in and decide which emails they want to get. Because again, when the content is relevant to their interests, there's a much higher chance they're going to pay attention and open the email. Now, in terms of when to send an email, at this point, Tuesday to Thursday, midday, is usually pretty safe. You're going to find pretty consistent results. Last few months, I've actually found really good results sending in the evening. Certainly for businesses that are dealing with consumers, something at 7 or 8 at night tends to get a few more opens than during the day. If anybody does any commercial real estate business to business, I would send during the day. The nice thing though with email though is you can play with it. You might want to send your first one, let's say Tuesday at 11 a.m. See the numbers, and then for April you might want to send something out. You might want to try Wednesday night, and then you just compare the reports and you can decide which one's better. So again, when you're using one of these, like an agent locator or Exact, MailChimp, Constant Contact, they're going to give you an option to include social media buttons at the top of your email. The benefit here is that last statistic I read, about the average adult on Facebook has about 300 friends. If you can get one person to share your email on Facebook, you potentially increase your awareness by about 300 people. So again, there's no cost to it. When you're setting up your email, it's a box you check for the social icons, and it goes to the top of the email. So again, really helpful, and it can really boost your awareness. And the bonus one is, I would say, when you are creating a newsletter, post it on your social media. I'm going to talk about the numbers in a moment, but the average open rate for an email is about 25%. So if you can get 25% of the people on your list to open your email, that's actually pretty good. So chances are some of the people that are on your mailing list won't open it, but they may be following you on LinkedIn or Facebook. So you can post it there. And of course, there are going to be people that you're connected to on social media that aren't on your mailing list. So again, most of these systems have something built in that will automatically feed it out to your social channels when you send out the email. And again, you never know who's going to be where people want to get their information. So any questions about getting people to open the email? So I'd like to stop for questions. So I've been speaking for about 6 or 7 years. A few years ago, I was at the Oakville Milton Real Estate Board. And one of the comments that has haunted me to this day was, did not allow enough time for questions. So that's why I like to pause it. I like to give people an opportunity. Okay. So now I want to talk a little bit about tracking your results. Because to me, one of the most valuable things that email does, it gives you numbers and data that really no other no other form of marketing does. So the key is, though, you actually have to know which numbers you should be paying attention to, how you're going to use those numbers to improve your results, and again, you really want to be focusing on the action that people are taking. So the goal, of course, is to get people engaged, to get them clicking, to get them replying. That's really what you want to focus on. So just to give you an example of some of the reports that you'll get from these systems. You'll have to excuse me, I'm a bit of a statistics nerd, so I like these. Going to find the open rate. So of course, first of all, real estate, average open rate, again, about 25%. I think for my clients, I like to get anywhere between 30 and 60, depending on the size of the list. You'll find the fewer people you have on your list, the higher the percentage will be, because chances are they're really handpicked for your list. So somebody with like a team that has 5,000 people on the mailing list, they're going to get about 20–25%. But if you've got 100 people, even 50 is a great start. You're going to find your numbers are higher. And again, if you're finding they're actually a little bit lower than this, one thing you can do is sort of figure out, what can I improve on? Is it the content? Is it do I need to improve the subject line? Do I need to send it at a different time? Or of course, you can actually pull a list of people that haven't opened your email ever, and you can just remove them. So again, you know that there are people on your list that are not interested, and it's almost just taking space. Again, the clicks. So we've got the percentage of people that actually open the email. Now you want to look at the percentage of those people that actually have taken an action. So again, average across all industries is about 5 to 18. Real estate, if it's done well, it tends to do a little bit higher. I would say you get about 20%, 20 to 30% of the people that open your email will actually click a link. Because again, you know what people are interested in, and you're going to be giving it to them. If you like, so again, you can always pull a report that tells you who didn't open your email. If you like, you can actually resend it to them at a different day or time with a different subject line and see if you can get them to open it that way. It's something that I recommend doing once in a while, but not on a regular basis, because at that point, now they've just received 2 emails from you in a short period of time, and chances are they might unsubscribe. But I would say once or twice a year, just out of curiosity to figure out what can I improve on to actually get people to open the email. Now, chances are, every time you send out an email, somebody or a few people are going to unsubscribe. I would say you want to make sure that it's under 1% of your list. That's about industry average. Anything more than that, you have to sort of step back and think, am I sending too frequently? Is the content not relevant? Again, the systems give people an opportunity to tell you why they unsubscribed. So if you can find out that information, that may be helpful to figure it out. But I think under 1% you should is about right. And the challenge is not to take it personally. Because once in a while, somebody that you know in real life is actually going to click on subscribe. And it's easy to be like, but they're my friend. Really, but if they know you in real life, they don't necessarily need to be getting your email. And they could have done it by accident. But what this means is you can no longer send a marketing email. So do you have questions about the unsubscribing or opt-outs? Again, a lot of emails are going to bounce, especially at first. One of the nice things about these systems is that they actually collect the information from you. Because right now, if you're in Yahoo or Gmail and you send an email to somebody's email address no longer works, you get a bounce back. And it's time consuming to manage that. So this will actually collect it for you. You pull a report, and if you really know them, you can give them a call and get updated information. So again, it's a really good excuse to pick up the phone to make contact with people. Because again, I think email is a really great way. It's part of that touch system, but it really is only it's just one of the 5 things you can do to reach out to people. So if you have an excuse to pick up the phone in a non-salesy kind of way, people are going to be happy. And if you want to go even deeper, so not only can you find out how many people opened your email, you can find out who opened your email, and you can pull up a list of the people that clicked on the links. So this can be really helpful if you want to segment your database. So if you want to figure out, okay, so who on my list, for instance, is interested in home renovation? You can actually have them go onto a completely separate list. So let's just say you have free tickets to a home show. You can send them to that list and just, you know that they're interested in home renovation, let them know that you've singled them out as being special, and people really like that. And again, these systems, you can just set it up when you put the story and you say anybody that clicks on this link, put them in a list of people who like home renos. And again, it's just these are people giving you information about what they are interested in. I just want to take a moment just to pull everything together. Again, it's sort of a bit of a cheat sheet for an effective email. Again, you want your subject line to be as short as possible, looking at like 6 to 10 words, 30 to 40 characters. It's important, again, make sure that it's really clear as to who the email is coming from. I know it is part of the anti-spam legislation, but common sense says we want our clients to know who the email is coming from. Again, you got that pre-header text. I would say one thing that often people forget is to make the logo or the top banner clickable to the website. Because again, 50% or more people are opening this on a phone. We're so used to using our thumbs to click to get to a link. You don't want to miss an opportunity. Again, you want to have some great visuals, whether they're yours, whether they're stock photography. That's really going to pull people in. And again, if there's something specific you want people to take an action on, whether it's a new listing or just a story you think they're going to be interested in, a button like that sign up today will draw more attention than just a text link. You don't want to overuse it, but again, that's going to attract more links. Again, of course, you want it all branded. And at the bottom or the top, you want to include links to anywhere you're on social media. So again, your LinkedIn profile, Facebook, if you're on Instagram, is anybody on Twitter? Yeah, I don't generally recommend it for real estate agents. So again, but you want to have them all. You want to have them all. So again, whenever somebody wants to follow you somewhere, it's right. The information is right there, and we'll make it easy. So again, the advantage that real estate agents have is that you really have that genuine connection to people because you work with them so closely. So again, you know who they are, you know what they're interested in. Your email can be a lot more interesting and personable than something from, let's say, a Shoppers Drug Mart or Canadian Tire or Tim Hortons, who's sending it out to everybody who's ever signed up for their list. Yours can actually really speak to them and generate some interest. So that brings me to the formal end of the presentation. I would like to take just a moment just to explain a little bit about what I do for my clients. So again, the business is MD Digital Communications, and I've been actually running it for 11 years. About 3/4 of my clients right now are real estate agents, sort of in the golden horseshoe. And really the two main services we offer, one is a custom newsletter. So the benefit of this is the content is chosen specifically for each client, and it's not duplicated with any other agents. And again, the benefit of this is a cookie cutter newsletter feels like something generic. This one is much more custom. It's branded. It's got content that we know clients are going to be interested in. It's got your listings, and the introduction is personalized. So ideally, on a monthly basis, it takes a client about 15 minutes. They send us the listings they want to include. They approve the proof, and then it goes out to their database. The other arm of the business is social media. So whereas email is a really great tool for staying in touch with people you know, social media is a great way for building awareness. So we help our clients by creating a social media strategy because it's often a challenge to figure out what success looks like when you're using Facebook or Instagram. And then we manage the postings. So we post up to 5 times a week on Facebook, 2 to 3 times a week on Instagram. We work with you to help build a list of followers, to create custom audiences for ads. And I think a lot of our clients like it because they can be hands-off. They can check their feed once in a while, but they don't need to think about how much time they're spending posting on these channels. So that is what we do. And actually, I said thank you for coming. And I guess to anybody who's listening on Zoom or from the other offices, we're offering a free digital marketing tune-up. So we'll take some time. We'll look you up on Google, check your social media channels, any emails you might be sending out. We'll take a look. We'll give some concrete advice on how to take it to the next level and make sure everything is working. All you need to send me an email, and we can get started. So that brings you to the end. Yes, and then questions.
Just in terms of cost,
Mhm.
how would that entail?
So the monthly newsletter, it's $220 per month. And I do ask for a 6-month commitment because it can often take a little bit of time to figure out what people are interested in. But again, I think the benefit is that it's unique. So that's where the time comes in because the content is chosen specifically for you. So again, even if everybody in this room was sending out a newsletter to the same people, they would all be completely different. Yeah. Well, again, thank you for
Excuse
coming.
me, the cost for one month, so
Well, yes, so for it's $220 per email. So you're billing at $220 per month.
20.
Right. But also it doesn't, that's $220 whether you've got 100 people on your list or 1,000. So the cost doesn't change depending on the number. Yeah. So do you have a business card that I can send this? Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, thank you. Very well. Thank you. Of course. Oh, I understand, yeah.
I need to review this your information.
Okay,
Okay.
right.
How can I access this?
Well, I can send the slides, or I'm happy to speak on the phone as well. Yeah, okay. Great, yeah, thank you very much.
Can you send to our email?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I will send it as soon as I'm back at my desk.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We need something for that.
Okay, yeah, no, of course, thank you. I know it's, when you're not used to being in school, sitting for an hour to 90 minutes with a lot of information is, it gets jumbled, so I get it.
We have many things online.
Oh, yes, yes.
That's very tight.
Yeah, no, I know what I mean. You're running a business, yeah, and running a household, so it's a challenge to try and figure out where to focus your priorities. Yeah.
So much.
Yeah, no, definitely. Thanks.
you are doing marketing for many people in this office, yeah? For pre-construction, I saw your sign.
Maybe, I know I've done a little bit of work with Wendy Rabowski.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've fixed up her Facebook. I'm not sure that I've done email for pre-construction here.
Yeah, and every day I receive the pre-construction. I see your,
Okay,
yeah, I see your,
okay.
I think working
With, cause I,
with the construction department office.
I don't think that's me.
Really?
Yeah.
But I saw your sign, your brand.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, construction. It's your brand.
Okay, are you able to pull up an email? Because I mean, I don't have a million clients. I've only got about 40 or 50, so I'm usually hands-on.
It's.
Yeah, maybe it's stolen my identity.
Oh, it's not, but constant contact is not for you?
Could be, yeah, yeah.
Constant contact, yeah? It's your brand?
No, Constant Contact, no, that's not my brand.
It's not for
No.
you?
It's a software that people use that we use for our email, but they're a huge company in Boston.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so it's not me.
People send me a mail, this is a brand and not the.
Yeah, okay, so they bought the software.
They
Yeah,
bought the
yeah, so that's not me.
It's different, the person, the marketing.
Yes, yeah, so they
You
already
wanna
do.
manage the marketing email for every.
Yes, that's what I would do.
And if you want to use a software, you have to buy and you manage it.
Correct.
You have to do two. You have to pay
Right.
for software and pay for managing and marketing, yeah?
Yes, although some of my clients use MailChimp, which is free. I think it depends if you're using a customer relationship management tool like a CRM, because some of them integrate really well with MailChimp and it's free. But yeah, we do need to use that. We do need to use this piece of software to get the email out, because it's the MailChimp or Constant Contact that actually gives us the tools to figure out how many people are we need.
Okay, we asked you, one real estate doesn't have this kind of software,
Right.
just wants to work with you.
They would have to have another piece of software as well. But the cost,
And how much it costs?
MailChimp is free. Constant
What's
Contact's
the name?
MailChimp. MailChimp. Yes, CHIMP. MP. Yeah, and then Constant Contact starts at $26 Canadian.
I love
Yeah, it's a good. The big difference. $26 Canadian. Yeah, I think the big
it.
difference
Per year?
is 26 per month. So just 26. Yeah.
One time, we have to pay for buying or everything?
It's every month. It's a subscription. The big difference between them is that Constant Contact has really great customer service. So, yeah, so you can chat online or call them. You get to speak to a real person who will answer your question. MailChimp doesn't offer any of that unless you pay for it. And I think the emails from Constant Contact look a little bit more professional than MailChimp. MailChimp's it's sort of a beginner, but it's basic. Yeah, and I think, again, there's a CRM called Attachway that integrates with MailChimp. And then so clients, I have a handful of clients that use it casually, so we do their email.
Sharing the company support with the strategies? How about the strategies?
You know,
You don't have access.
I don't have access.
But
I
I
don't
so
have-
many real estate use that.
I always recommend using a company that's designed, that whose product is designed for sending email. So, again, like the MailChimp, Constant Contact, iExact, they're built for sending multiple email.
نه نه اون دوتا نداره اونا فقط حضور داشته باشید ولی حضور اون دوتا خیلی چیزی یعنی اگه اون تایم نباشه چند ساعته 2 ساعت یکیش 4 ساعت یکیش 2 ساعت ولی اونا باید
send one email.
Right? Is that stress?
No, it's not the status,
Okay.
but it's design, which is,
Right.
it's different.
Yeah.
So it's something tricky.
Yeah.
But the status is very beautiful.
Okay.
You have to find it, I have to email, I will show you.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah. Yes. Right.
J'ai corsé, j'ai corsé.
Okay. Yes.
So please say.
Okay.
Yes. My name is Kevin.
Yes. Yes.
Excellent. And
What do you
after
change
that,
up
I
down at the station?
use it in Maxi.
Right.
After that,
Right. Okay.
thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. So yeah, I'll send the slides and we can book a call and I can walk you through the process. Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks, Adam. Good to meet you.
Okay,
Sandra, entonces, Celeste.
Vale, sí.